Today's learners live in an age of unforeseen challenges. Education can be a pathway for personal transformation, and it has the power to lead to the societal and global changes we need to build a just, sustainable, and peaceful future for all. But to do this, education itself has to transform, so everyone can learn the knowledge, skills, and values to care for each other and act for the planet. Welcome to the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development, Global Citizenship, Health, and Well-being. A global discussion on where we stand on realizing transformative education. Together, we can build a better future.
Hello everyone, I'm Alexander Leich, the Chief of the Section of Education for Sustainable Development at UNESCO, and I will be one of the co-moderators of this opening session.
Hi, I'm Jung Min-nam, Head of Office of Research and Development at APSEU, and I'm the co-moderator of this opening session. And we have Alexander Leich from UNESCO. He's Chief of Education for Sustainable Development section, and he'll be co-moderating this opening session.
Thank you very much. Welcome to everyone to the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development, Global Citizenship, Health and Well-being. The UNESCO Forum series began in 2013 in Bangkok, and this 5th edition is live streamed from Seoul. It is co-organized by UNESCO and the Asia Pacific Center of Education for International Understanding, APSEU, and it is hosted by the Ministries of Education and Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea.
Welcome to the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development, Global Citizenship, Health and Well-being. This 5th edition will discuss where we stand with the implementation of transformative education. Unfortunately, the persistent pandemic doesn't allow us to get together as we used to. However, around 2,000 of education partners from all over the world are connected to this event. Before we move on to the opening remarks, I would like to remind you that all sessions are available in 4 languages: English, French, Spanish, and Korean, either on the online platform or on YouTube.
And now I would like to invite Ms. Stefania Giannini, the Assistant Director General for Education of UNESCO, to deliver her opening remarks.
Excellencies, Deputy Prime Minister and Ministers of Education, Republic of Korea, Director General, Public Diplomacy and Cultural Affairs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Director of APCU. Greetings from Paris to all. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development, Global Citizenship, Health and Well-being. We recently celebrated, as you know, UNESCO's 75th birthday. This occasion served to remind us that from the foundation of this organization, upon the rubble of the Second World War, education was understood to be crucial to rebuilding a peaceful world and transforming society for the better. Today, humanity faces new challenges, we know. The escalating climate crisis, the rise of hate speech and violent ideologies, mass biodiversity loss, and the global pandemic that has affected, at the peak of the pandemic, as you remember, 1.6 billion almost learners worldwide. Education must prepare learners to navigate uncertain futures and help them create a more peaceful, just, and sustainable world. But to do this, education itself must be changed, must be transformed. UNESCO has called for a new social contract on education in our recent landmark report on the futures of education. The social contract calls for urgent rebalancing of our relationships with each other, with nature, and with technology. for pedagogies of collaboration, new pedagogies of collaboration, for cooperation and solidarity, new forms of solidarity that treasure and sustain diversity and pluralism. Education must be truly transformative. It must give us the knowledge, the skills, values, and ability to transform ourselves. In turn, we will transform society, of course. 6 years after the adoption of SDG 4, a commitment to inclusive quality education for all, we take stock. What do we mean by quality? What needs to change in our education systems to really reach our 2030 goals? Well, we need to learn to read and write, of course, but also to learn collaboration, empathy, complex problem solving, connection to other human beings and nature. And to do this, we need students who are happy and healthy. Simple like this. This is why Sustainable Development Goal Target 4.7, which aims to help us transform the world through education, is integral to meeting all the SDGs. It's crucial to do that. Today we launched the results of a global survey of almost 60,000 teachers conducted by UNESCO and Education International. Let me say something about that. The teachers have their say report, this is the title, shows that while most teachers are motivated, quite engaged, a quarter still don't feel ready to teach terms related to Target 4.7, concerning they feel least confident teaching the socio-emotional elements. Well, UNESCO's programs on education for sustainable development, global citizenship education, and education for health and well-being are key to changing this framework. The holistic vision of the vital competencies and content are being called for by young people around the world. We heard this loud and clear message most recently at COP26 and in the lead up at the pre-COP Youth Summit. They want transformative education, which allows people of any gender, class, to race, to contribute to the creation of a better world. Since our last forum, there has been increased global acknowledgement of the key role of Target 4.7, a major milestone. Let me call the World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development in Berlin the first global ministers' conference and a multi-stakeholder forum addressing hate speech through education, and the launch of the Foundation of Life and Love campaign on comprehensive sexuality education. This fifth UNESCO Forum will allow us to expand and connect the global community working on transformative education, to share good practices, to analyze the gaps, and how to measure success. I deeply thank the Ministries of Education and Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea for your generous support of this forum. And my sincere gratitude also goes to our co-organizer, the Asia Pacific Center of Education for International Understanding. This forum comes at a momentous time as the world considers how learning can really contribute to rebuilding after crisis. Just as 75 years ago, let's make this a turning point in history for transforming the world through education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Giannini. Now I would like to invite the Honorable Mr. Yoo Eun-hae, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Republic of Korea, to pronounce her welcoming remarks.
안녕하세요. 대한민국 부총리 겸 교육부
Distinguished
장관.
guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am Eun-hae Yoon. I am delighted that the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development, Global Citizenship, Health and Well-being is being held here in Korea. First, I would like to thank UNESCO's Assistant Secretary General of Education, Ms. Giannini, for her warm, welcoming remarks. I would also like to extend my gratitude and welcome to all of you for joining today's forum. Most of all, I want to express my special thank you to UNESCO headquarters and Director Im Hyun-mook at APSEU for their dedication and hard work to host this event. At the World Education Forum 2015 held in Incheon, Korea has taken a leading role in setting agendas and goals for the global community to be achieved by 2030 for sustainable development in education, and has spared no effort in creating an inclusive educational environment that leaves no one behind from their early childhood to adult lives. We have particularly devoted our attention and efforts to ensure that the education for sustainable development and global citizenship education, which fall under the Sustainable Development Goals Target 4.7, are well established and implemented in the field of education. This forum is a significant event because it provides us with an opportunity to share our efforts and progress in promoting ESD and GCED, as well as discuss future directions together. Today, the global community faces diverse challenges that require global and concerted action, such as climate change, discrimination, human rights abuse, and violent extremism. Over the past 2 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused mutual disconnection and learning loss problems, and has exacerbated hatred and discrimination attributed to race, nationality, religion, gender identity, and so on. Against this backdrop, education should play the role of building peace in the minds of men and women of future generations and nurturing mature citizens with a sense of responsibility towards the global challenges we are facing today. Education for mature citizens should be committed to fostering a sense of respect and sympathy towards others and an ability to act for tackling social problems. This is precisely why we should turn our eyes to education for sustainable development that respects both future and present generations. Global citizenship education aimed at cultivating universal human values and transformative education to promote learner-centered education that leads to actual action. The Ministry of Education of the Republic of Korea, to this end, strives to lay down the educational foundation for our children to grow into mature citizens with an interest and ability to act towards global issues. The Ministry has supported the Korea National Commission for UNESCO Certification of Education for Sustainable Development, currently operated in government agencies, schools, and has helped the APSEU lead the spread of GCED. And these are just some of the examples demonstrating the efforts thus far. Considerable effort is being made not only in Korea but also in other countries across the world to create an environment where our children can grow into mature citizens. I hope this forum, where we will discuss the implementation of transformative education, where do we stand, for 3 days from today, will present us with a golden opportunity to share the role and achievements and experiences and visions of education that aims to solve common issues facing the world today and transform the global community into a better place. Wishing the forum a great success, I sincerely hope that we will soon overcome the COVID-19 pandemic and meet each other in person next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Ms. Yu, the Deputy Prime Minister. I would like to invite Mr. Kyun Jong-ho from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Korea, for his welcoming remarks.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development, Global Citizenship, Health and Well-being. I would like to extend my special thanks to the UNESCO Secretariat and UNESCO Asia Pacific Center of Education for International Understanding for all the excellent preparation and arrangement for this meaningful event. It has been 6 years since the World Education Forum 2015 was held here in the Republic of Korea. During the forum, global citizenship education was set as important international agenda for the first time. And with the benefit of the genuine and heartfelt effort of all of us, Sustainable Development Goal Target 4.7 was adopted at UN General Assembly. Whilst we have faced many challenges during those 6 years, the last 2 years have been particularly challenging. The unprecedented pandemic has placed a huge strain on our socio-economic system. Borders have closed. Education has been disrupted. And there have been greater tensions between various segments of society. Ironically, these far-reaching consequences of the pandemic have brought into focus the significance of global citizenship and transformative education as a critical means to bridge those gaps. The Republic of Korea recognized the importance of global citizenship education at early stage and has continued in its effort to realize SDG targets 4.7. In fact, Korea has held Global Citizenship Education Conference every year since 2016. And it launches together with other like-minded countries the Group of Friends for Solidarity and Inclusion with Global Citizenship Education in UNESCO in May 2020. With a view to taking concrete action, the Korean government jointly held a Global Forum Against Racism and Discrimination with UNESCO in March 2021. As we are all aware, SDG target 4.7 cannot be achieved by the effort of any single country. This is a goal which can only be achieved through concerted effort. To make this possible, UNESCO should present a clear vision and continue to create opportunities to share their practices, and this forum is one valued instance. Against this backdrop, the Republic of Korea welcomes the concept of transformative education. We embrace it as a new vision set by UNESCO to achieve SDG target 4.7. And it is the sincere hope of Korea that this forum may prove a chance to gain a clear picture of what transformative education means in practice. Moreover, each country should implement transformative education at the national level and share their practices at the international level. By sharing good practices, we can create a synergy. As we emphasize what has worked for us, others can learn from this and muster even more impetus. In this way, mutually beneficial momentum can be generated. In this regard, Korea is indeed ready and willing to fully share its good practices with the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful weapon to change the world." Through education, we can deepen the sense of global citizenship and in doing so, truly transform the world for the better. I believe that this forum will prove to be the opportunity to reflect on how far we have succeeded in bringing change in our world, and a wonderful occasion to share our thought and insight on how we can move even further ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kyun. And I now have the pleasure to invite Mr. Hyun Mok Lim, Director of APSEU, our co-organizer, to deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you. Distinguished participants, colleagues, and friends, greetings from Seoul, Korea. It is my great pleasure to open with you today the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development, Global Citizenship, Health and Well-being. On behalf of APSEU, Asia Pacific Center of Education for International Understanding, I would first like to thank you all for joining us for this forum, and particularly thank UNESCO Assistant Director General Stefania Giannini, Deputy Prime Minister Yoo Eun-hye, and Director General Kyun Jong-ho for their encouraging opening remarks. Dear participants, APSEU has the great privilege to co-organize this forum together with UNESCO. APSEU is a UNESCO center established upon the agreement between UNESCO and the government of Korea to contribute to the advancement of global citizenship education, GCED, and education for international understanding. Over the last 2 decades, APSEU has worked with educators, teachers, education policymakers, researchers, practitioners, and youth to strengthen teachers' capacity for GCED, develop GCED policy and materials, and facilitate exchange and cooperation. Since GCED and ESD were included in SDG 4.7 as an important educational content in 2015, there have been increased effort by the international community to mainstream them in the national curriculum, education policy, teacher training, and evaluation. Unlike other traditional subjects, however, ESD and GCED are rather difficult to monitor in their progress and evaluate in their learning outcomes. I think there are several challenges here. Firstly, ESD and GCED place strong emphasis on changes in learners' values, emotional capacity, and behaviors, along with acquisition of knowledge and skills. But learning outcomes in these non-cognitive dimensions are not easily captured by standardized written tests. Secondly, there is still some conceptual vagueness or confusion about ESD and GCED. On ESD, some people still tend to focus on the environmental dimension. On GCED, many people still raise the question about its conceptual clarity. Thirdly, there is a more fundamental question. To what extent ESD and GCED can and should be transformative? And what is the exact meaning of transformative? Are we talking about attitudinal and behavioral changes in individual citizens, or systemic and structural changes? Certainly, there are many other issues with regard to transformative education in general, and its monitoring and evaluation in particular. So I expect this forum will be a good opportunity for us to reflect on some of these issues and build a consensus about ways to move forward. Dear participants, thank you again for joining this forum, and look forward to meaningful discussions for the next 3 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lim. Before closing the opening session, let us share a couple of useful information for making your participation more interactive and engaging. First, we built the chat box available next to the live session screen. We highly encourage you to use this space to share your comments and questions. In addition to the chat box, some sessions will use interactive tools such as Slido, so please follow the instruction at each session.
And we've also prepared a discussion board embedded in the platform. There we will share all the session reports every day for your consultation, and you can also make comments using this function. Please also enjoy the exhibition, where you will find interesting and innovative projects presented by a number of partner organizations. And finally, please do not forget to visit the networking function on the platform so you can meet other participants and exchange messages.
Now, this is the end of the opening session. And please stay with us for the next session.
And the next session is a moderated conversation on transformative education, moderated by Eric Felt, the director of the UNESCO office in New Delhi. And what remains for me is to thank everyone and hand over to Eric Felt for his moderation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to all of you for this conversation on transformative education. My name is a warm welcome to all of you for the conversation on transformative education. My name is Eric Falt. I'm the director of the UNESCO New Delhi office, and I have the pleasure to moderate this session to kick off the discussion over the coming 3 days. The purpose of this particular session is to look into the concept of transformative education and try to look at it from both a conceptual and a practical dimension. I'm here today with our 2 guest speakers who will share with us their views on the transformative power of education. Let me first introduce them. And first, we have Mr. Nepomuceno Malaluan. He is Undersecretary of the Department of Education of the Philippines. As such, he looks after the interagency support unit of the cabinet, where education directives are coordinated. Among many other responsibilities, his office currently implements an Education Futures program. They also monitor the implementation of the top priorities of the Secretary, such as learning continuity in times of COVID. Our second speaker, Dr. Amr Abdallah, is Emeritus Professor at the University of Peace in Egypt. Dr. Abdallah is also the Senior Advisor on Conflict Resolution at Karama, Muslim Women Lawyers for Human Rights. For over 25 years, he has been teaching graduate classes, conducting training, evaluation and research in conflict analysis and resolution and peace building worldwide. I'm going to actually start with Professor Abdallah. I believe he's joining us today from the United States. Professor Abdallah, you have a long-standing experience in teaching young people on conflict resolution. So in discussing the transformative role of education, what do you think education should or can change in our contemporary world?
Thank you, Mr. Falt, and greetings to everyone. In terms of education and the transformative education, let me address this and how it can change. I will address this from 2 perspectives. One is what needs to be changed about education itself? And second, what can this education change in society? In terms, to respond to both elements, actually, I think the heart of all those issues is critical thinking. Because when we say transformative, by default, we mean that there is something that requires change. As such, we need to have clear understanding of what are the issues that we believe require or deserve transformation. In this regard, education itself, in terms of pedagogy, in terms of content, requires a good, careful look at what it provides to young people and how it delivers this. Things are changing rapidly in this world. And perhaps those among us who are actively engaged in teaching students every day know that the realities of today and how we teach and what we teach require a careful look. And I think COVID-19 and what it did to all of us have forced us into discovering, exploring, and sharpening skills in areas of education and delivery and pedagogy that we have never thought we'll ever have to do. Good example, often now when I teach my courses, we do the hybrid model where I have students sitting in front of me and another set of students are joining live from everywhere in the world. And having to coordinate this and to make sure that you deliver the same quality of education to those sitting in front of you and those who are watching, and to engage them and make sure that principles of transformative education in terms of interactiveness, participation, engagement are taking place is quite a challenge indeed, but it's not impossible. And I think we all see that we can learn a lot from such experiences. Yet, with COVID or without COVID, I believe that those hybrid models and online-based education is going to stay with us for a long time. And therefore, we need to learn how to incorporate this and to put it to the service of transformative education. In terms of the content of transformative education, again, based on critical thinking, there are topics that traditionally have not been included in curricula or in terms of what we think that the school especially or university should do. Particularly, we are too focused on the student-centered approach that is looking at the student as the only recipient of knowledge, when actually the wider community is also a recipient of knowledge. And our education should engage the community and make sure that they too are part of this, whether in terms of supporting a student or in terms of them being a direct recipient. In terms of what the education itself can do and how it can change matters in our society, there are actually many dimensions to this. I will focus now on one, and I will come back to it later, and which is with all the important dimensions of transformative education that can bring a positive effect to areas such as inclusiveness, appreciation of diversity, ability to resolve conflicts effectively, peaceful coexistence, better dealing with the environment. All those are expected outcomes of transformative education. But there is one element that I believe we must add to all of them, which is that when we talk about how to better deal with environment, how to better be inclusive and to appreciate diversity and to live peacefully with everyone around you, actually all this is you do it because it's in your own best interest as an individual or as a community. It's not just about idealism and romanticism of such wonderful ideas, but it's also because it will bring good to you personally and will bring good to you as a community. I believe that adding this dimension of what is the benefit to individuals and to communities from transformative education can actually make it more sellable to different societies and to make the concept actually more appealing in different settings.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Abdallah. Interesting to hear all your views on transformative education. And of course, I will now turn to Undersecretary Malalwan. The Philippines is clearly one of the champion countries promoting transformative education with the aim to make learners global citizens and caring for a sustainable and healthy future. So following your country's continuous efforts to reform and consolidate your education system, I would like to know if you've come to see any behavioral changes among the teachers, but also learners, the parents, as you intended.
Yes, thank you very much, Eric. Good morning to all and good evening from the Philippines. Transformative education really starts with vision, mindset, planning, and socialization and operationalization. For long, the focus of Philippine education has been mainly towards access. But under the present term of Secretary Briones, we have placed quality as the biggest challenge that we need to address. But as you know, quality is a very dynamic standard and it evolves with the challenges of the time. And I agree with Professor Abdallah that critical thinking, the sense of interconnectedness with the environment and the people, and I add the problem solving, desirable skills and durable skills and multiliteracies to allow learners to thrive in crisis situations such as what we are having, and to anticipate as well opportunities arising from movements in technology, all need to be at the center of teaching and learning. But this really requires, on the education governance side, thoroughgoing reforms. And prior to COVID, we have launched in the Philippines a program we call Sulong Ito Kalidad, or Onward Education Quality. And it comprises the pillars of curriculum review, continuous improvement of the learning environment, teachers upskilling and reskilling, and partnerships. But of these pillars, we believe that teachers and school leadership is most critical, and we have been transforming our National Educators Academy, for example, which is our unit responsible for in-service professional development of our teachers and school leaders in terms of its organizational capacity, program integration, upgrade of training facilities, and expanded scholarships, including for full graduate degrees. But to your question on whether these reforms are generating the desired behavior change among our stakeholders, particularly, for example, teachers and ultimately the learners. As we capacitate our teachers and school leaders, we empower really the field units to contextualize our policy direction. And we have seen vibrant innovation on the ground in terms of school leadership and teaching and learning strategies. For example, in remote schools catering to indigenous learners, one of our divisions deployed offline a local area network to provide learners with a digital learning environment, even in the absence of connectivity infrastructure in the area. And I've seen in the eyes of the students, their sense of empowerment, being able to access and use technology like their better resource counterparts in the cities. We have had in the Global Teacher Prize from the Philippines at least 2 finalists in recent years. And our 2018 finalists, for example, used culture-based teaching, promoting learning through traditional dances, songs, epics, local games, and crafts that give context to their studies. And quoting from him, he says, I love teaching because it is an opportunity to touch, transform, and empower my indigenous students who are deprived and less privileged. Yet they are very determined to reach their dreams through education to become productive members of the community, of the country, and of the world. It has really compelled us to look again at the broader learning ecosystem beyond the confines of physical classrooms. Learning spaces are habitats. We can regard learning spaces are habitats for learners, where learners learn and become adaptive in order to thrive. And this emphasizes configurations of integrated learning spaces, the conduct of roundtable discussions to tackle key aspects, opportunities, challenges, and strategies and solutions for the future learning spaces. We are making an open call for submission of studies on future learning spaces as part of the cooperation and knowledge building process. But we are also looking and identifying at already existing best practices to unlock, to connect, to replicate and scale future learning spaces and create system-level change for transformative education. So, Eric, that's a dimension that we would want to develop for transformative education, being able to harness and access and leverage all learners' habitats outside or beyond the confines of the physical formal education spaces area.
Back to you, Professor Abdallah. I know you have very strong views on how to transform oneself and then society. So would you please care to elaborate a little bit?
I will say that this is due to is a direct experience of working with many people worldwide. Not only in terms of the formal type of education in a university setting or a school setting, but also working in communities, especially in post-conflict communities and societies. I have seen the benefit of transformative education and training and all the other models that we use, especially when we go into a non-formal education settings, on how it impacts people, as you said, the self first, and then on how it can impact the wider communities. Let me give you two direct examples on this. In terms of the self effect, I had a very interesting experience a few days ago, actually, with one of my students who actually attended an online course I teach about Introduction to Peace and Conflict at University for Peace over a year ago. And then I met her finally face-to-face in Costa Rica at UPeace just a few days ago. And she said, you know, I have to tell you that that course that I took from you took away my fighting spirit. And I said, what do you mean by this? And she said, I used to be a real activist and I just want to go and I believe in my cause and I go and fight so hard for it. But by learning about conflict resolution and conflict analysis, I found that I need to hold back first and assess and understand. Maybe there is a different point of view of the other side. How can I reach out to them in a more appealing way, not just in a confrontational way? So in a way, she was like, quote unquote, blaming me for taking away her fighting spirit. But that was in such a positive way in terms of how now she has a better way of dealing with conflicts and confrontations in a more positive, peaceful way. For me, this is a kind of transformation that happens on a very personal level that can happen only if we are using the proper techniques that can make what we do resonate with people in their heart and mind. I have another example of also the benefit of participatory education and opening the space for people to share. And even to the point that we bring about issues that may not be as comfortable for all of us, yet they are also transformative on a very deep level. Back again to my experience teaching at University for Peace, one time I had a seminar discussing nonviolence. And as you can imagine, the students who are coming to study in a place like University for Peace, they are converted already. They already believe in nonviolence, believe in all those Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and so on. So we were talking about the issue of nonviolence and examples of nonviolence, and the students were just going all the way, giving great examples and asserting that nonviolence is the way to address conflicts in any place and under any condition. Great, I was expecting this. However, one young woman in the group was quiet all throughout the seminar. At the end, she raised her hand and she said, I know what you're saying about nonviolence. I really believe in it like you do. But I also want to tell you that when I was 14 years old, I was sexually assaulted by 2 men. In retrospect, I wished I used violence to stop what happened to me. And she started to cry. That experience happened 10 years ago. I still repeat that story because I saw the effect of that story on everyone in that room and in every room that I share that story with, because it helps people to get to the point that myself and His Excellency mentioned, critical thinking. How can we even think of the concept that we dearly uphold, such as nonviolence? And how can we make sense of it, at the same time make sense of the experience of this young woman? How can we insist on nonviolence, at the same time embrace this young woman and her experience? For me, it is that level of deep critical thinking that we need and we can achieve through transformative education. Another dimension is about the effect on communities, especially in post-conflict settings. And here too, this is where I insist on that concept of what is the benefit, what's in it for me. I know that doesn't sound as idealistic as we like to talk about issues of transformative education, but at the same time, I believe that this is critical to the extent that we can get more people to find that it's in their interest to use alternatives to violence, alternatives to non-peaceful coexistence, alternatives to refusing diversity. And when they realize that actually by embracing diversity and peaceful coexistence and the peaceful resolution of conflict, that and embracing environment as well, that they will do better, they will actually continue on that path of transformation. And this I saw very clearly in Darfur. I went twice with a UN environment program to do evaluation of peace building and conflict resolution programs over natural resources and environment. We all know that the area of the Sahel, including Darfur, is one of the areas that suffer so much because of climate change and the effect on natural resources and the competition between different groups that is leading to very violent conflict that tend to take other layers, such as ethnic, religious, and racial, and so on. So the concept of UN environment in that part of the world is to provide support for managing natural resources in a more effective way and educating people on how to manage their resources effectively, even though they are enemies and they have been for now decades fighting and killing each other. By giving them this alternative of how to manage your resources more effectively, and then in doing so, you actually get the water that you have been killing people to get, or get the forest and access to the forest that you used to go and fight people and burn it down to deprive them from. They started to realize that they are actually gaining what they wanted to fight for all the way, except they are doing it peacefully. They don't have to go back and resort to violence. Resorting to violence was intended because they were unable to achieve their basic needs or satisfy them using peaceful means. If you now give them peaceful means that are satisfying their basic needs and interests, then they can actually think, maybe I should not resort to violence. And then on top of it, not only that they were able to reduce violence and stop it to a great extent between groups that used to fight each other for so long, but they also found that because those different groups learned how to cooperate, how to coexist together, and how to actually achieve their own self-interest mutually, they started now to think of a future, start to think beyond the immediate present, and to start to cooperate about ideas and projects that improve the quality of life for all of them. I have seen women who, through such projects and activities, started to become entrepreneurs, started to receive education, and to transform not only their lives, but the lives of their families and everyone around them. I will say that making sure that as a big component of what we do with transformative education is to highlight the benefit to people and how they will gain something on a personal level and on a community level is something that I think it can enrich our approaches and how we can actually implement transformative education.
Thank you very much, Professor Abdullah. We both are, you both explained very well your perspective on transformative education. We have some time because we started early, so we have a few more minutes if you would like to offer words of conclusion. And I will start with you, Undersecretary Malalwan. Obviously, you're trying, you've explained transformative education from the perspective of the Philippines, but globally, do you have any suggestions for everyone, for all other countries?
Well, I'd like to take off from my comment about broadening the learning ecosystem beyond the confines of the physical classroom. And this is to recognize that all of us really have a contribution to the teaching and learning process of our children nationally and around the world. And so that includes all our globally, our contribution to in various institutions, be it, for example, the mass media, or whether it's news and entertainment, the direction of the educational system around the world, the equity of use of resources, all of these are interconnected towards education. And the idea is that it is a shared responsibility. And it is a shared responsibility that goes beyond borders. I think that is, if we're talking about transformative education, it is not to skill our teachers, but society as a whole. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Abdallah, you have a chance to conclude. What would these words of conclusion be?
Okay, staying with my approach, which is to try to bring some real life examples and to demonstrate the effectiveness of transformative education. I would like also to highlight another very successful experience that I have had the honor to work with, especially in Iraq. And before I get there, I have to say that there is an appetite for transformative education worldwide. I think it's not difficult to sell the concept. It's not difficult to get people to appreciate the benefit of transformative education. And I have seen that evidently from the research we've done in the Arab world in general, and from the practice of opening programs of peace and conflict resolution at a master's degree level and other formal settings and non-formal settings, especially in Iraq. It is really really encouraging to see that young people and old people, university professors and youth, all of them are very receptive to the concept of learning about the principles of what we call transformative education. And perhaps one of the great things about transformative education is, I mean, yes, in some settings you go out and say, I am going to talk about transformative education today, or I'm going to teach transformative education. But in other places, we don't exactly say that, but we say we're going to teach about diversity. We're going to teach about environment. We're going to teach about conflict resolution. So there are many topics that fall under the great banner, wide banner of transformative education, and also how to do the teaching itself. In this regard, I found that the topic and the delivery of subjects such as conflict resolution and peacemaking and so on are actually very well received in everywhere we go in the world. And I go back again to the principle of people realize the effect directly that happens to them. It's amazing to see the transformation happening in front of you and to see that people are actually absorbing what we are delivering in terms of transformative education as it relates to certain topics of importance for them. Skills and knowledge and psychological and behavior change that happen because people are thirsty for those skills and knowledge that transformative education offers, because it improves their life. It provides alternatives to what they are used to. And many of them become advocates for what we offer for them through transformative education. And therefore, I believe that by looking at some of those bright examples, whether in the Middle East, in Asia, Africa, the Americas, Europe, anywhere, you will find that there are actually effective examples. And maybe that goes to a point what was made in the opening session about the need for evaluation and to assess the effectiveness and the impact. I think with careful evaluation, we can actually extract some very good examples and lessons learned that can be replicable in more places worldwide.
Thank you so much, Professor Abdallah, for your very inspiring conclusion. This will bring an end to this first conversation today. I hope the audience has had some food for thoughts to continue the discussion on transformative education in different sessions from probably more specific angles. I would like to thank very much our two speakers today who were speaking to us from the Philippines and the United States. Thank you very much. And now I invite all of you to please stay connected for Plenary 1, which will discuss practices at the country level more in detail. This was Eric Falt signing off from New Delhi, India. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellencies, participants, colleagues and partners, greetings from Almaty. My name is Krista Pikat, and I'm the UNESCO representative in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and the director of the UNESCO office in Central Asia, based in Almaty. And I have the honor to moderate the first plenary session that is entitled, "What does progress in transformative education look like? A look at practices at the country level." Let me start by acknowledging that since its inception, UNESCO has been promoting transformative power of education to make the world a better place to live through both individual and societal transformation. And UNESCO's work in this has been guided, among others, by the 1974 recommendation concerning education for international understanding, cooperation and peace, education relating to human rights and fundamental freedoms, and of course, since 2015, also by Sustainable Development Goal number 4, and in particular its target 4.7, which is also, of course, crucial to reaching all SDGs. UNESCO's member states have been promoting and putting into practice transformative education under different concepts in response to their respective needs and priorities. But we can already see that all countries highlight the role of education in building a set of knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes that allow learners to take informed decisions and actions in response to both local and global challenges of socioeconomic and environmental nature. As we get closest to the target date of the achievement of SDGs, there are increasing number of efforts that are made both at the global and country level to monitor progress towards transformative education, which, as I said, is reflected in target 4.7. So this is against this background that we also hear increasing number of people and stakeholders demand to understand better what concrete progress at the country level in transformative education looks like and how it can be best be captured. So this session of the plenary will look at the practices at the country level. It is organized as a panel discussion, and it will have hopefully 4 countries, Botswana, Japan, Jordan, and Germany, share their vision and practice and progress in transformative education. So we have invited representatives from ministries of education to share their experience in implementing transformative education across a range of topics such as education for sustainable development, global citizenship education, and education for health and well-being, while highlighting their approach and pathway to find synergies across a range of topics. So I'm very proud and happy to present to you our speakers. The first speaker, Mr. Shadrach Majwaber, who is the Director of the Department of Curriculum Development and Evaluation from the Ministry of Basic Education of Botswana, seems to have some technical challenges to join us because of the internet connection, but I do hope that he will be with us. Our second speaker is Ms. Taka Horio, who is Assistant Secretary General of the Japanese National Commission for UNESCO and also the Associated Schools Program National Coordinator at the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology of Japan. Our third speaker is Ms. Naiveen Juhar, Member of Directorate of Curricula at the Ministry of Education of Jordan. And our fourth speaker is Dr. Thomas Greiner, Head of the Subdivision on Lifelong Learning at the Federal Ministry of Education and Research in Germany. We shall start with 2 rounds of questions that I shall put to the speakers, and I will try to limit also and manage the time per question. So we have 3, 8, and 5 minutes respectively for our questions. And then we'll also pick a few questions from the audience before a final round of questions from me. So be very actively engaged and also comment your thoughts and ideas in light of our discussion, because we will be also engaging and reaching out to you at some point. You can write your comments and questions to the speakers in the chat box that will stay active throughout the session, and that will be monitored by my colleague, Ms. June Morohashi, who will also help me pick some questions that we will put on your behalf to the speakers. So I hope that this discussion will help us identify some key factors and success indicators that should be retained to take stock of and assess the progress at the country level. And let us then move straight to the first question, where our aim is actually to make sure that we understand the breadth of what we mean by transformative education. So we shall ask our speakers to put on paper some concepts that they associate with the words transformative education, and then we would invite them to comment on these words. I see that we have already the first words coming from Japan, so I'm very happy to ask Ms. Horio from Japan to actually speak to these concepts. Over to you.
Okay, Krista, thank you very much for introducing me. I put the keyword for the transformative education is change mindset and change actions. So we think the education promote a change of student or teacher's mindset, and accordingly to change their action is very key to transformative education. If students do not recognize the issues related to their lives or their education, school education, they don't think the solution seriously. However, if they understand the relations or how they connect to their lives, they are seriously think about the solutions and accordingly to their actions. For example, we have a Tadami Junior High School located in mountain area. Even though they learned ocean plastic as a global issues in their class, they think ocean plastic and garbage is based on each problem in the ocean area, not their lives. So they don't think they can do something to these global issues. So teachers brought the students to the beach to pick up the garbage at the beach. And then the students found the garbage is not only the ocean side, but also comes from the rivers or the towns in the mountains. So they realized the connection between the ocean garbage and their daily lives. So they seriously think about the solutions to reduce the plastic bag, and they produce the paper bags and to reduce at the shops. And then the those actions involved the communities. So that kind of the teachers brought the students to change their students' mindset, and then the students can think about the solutions to change their actions. So that is the things we thought under transformative education. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I then move on to Ms. Juhar from Jordan? What are the words that you associate with transformative education? I see that we don't have the words yet. Ms. Juhar, over to you.
Hi everyone, I am Niveen Johar from Jordan. How I understand the transformative education, all of countries in the world follow up the transformative education. In Jordan, we focus about transformative education. We put a policy keeping on development and modernization, quality, differentiation, efficient education, and focusing on lifelong learning, critical thinking, and digital skills. We also focus about develop students' personal, social, and professional skills, develop vocational and technical education.
Thank you. A whole new set of concepts coming forward. Thank you so much. Let me then look to Mr. Greiner from Germany. Over to you.
Thank you. To our opinion, education is always transformative for the individual. As you know, in Germany, we have the long Humboldtian Bildungstradition, where Bildung, education, is described as linking the student's self to the world in the most general, most animated, and most unrestrained interplay. The question remains if this self-transformation stays a self-referential process or if it is connected to transformation processes of society, which shall be achieved to reach sustainable development. And here, newer approaches of transformative learning come into play. As we see it, we have learned in the last 15 years in particular what education for sustainable development means. That is how education can advance a successful transformation of society towards sustainability. mainly with its toolbox of competences and methods to make the people more responsible for their acts. ESD turns the systemic challenges for sustainable development into key elements of teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we see that already the concept in itself is so complex, and there are so many sides and aspects to that, starting from the what we actually want to achieve. So it's a change of mindset, change of action, and then also, you know, what kinds of aspects it encompasses when in the education system, and last but not least, how do we actually bring this individual change to the level of the society? Let us then zoom in on the country experiences. And I would invite, because I don't think that we have our speaker from Botswana with us, unfortunately. So I would turn immediately to the example of Japan. And we will be looking at the Japanese example in promoting transformative education through UNESCO's Associated Schools Network. Japan has more than 1,200 UNESCO associated schools, and the country is mobilizing the network to promote education for sustainable development at the school level. I believe that the ministry has conducted some interesting studies to see what has been changed in the school through this action. And this is why we would very much appreciate Ms. Horio's sharing with us some of these findings of the ministry. Over to you, Ms. Horio.
Okay, thank you. So I think that my slide can be shared. Okay, thank you. So as the Ministry of Education in Japan, since the very first stage of ESD, that transformation of school education system is a key to achieve the purpose of ESD. So as you can see from the chronological table on the left, we made several efforts to promote ESD together with UNESCO Associated School Network, which is positioned as a driver for promoting ESD in Japan. For example, the Japanese National Commission for UNESCO published proposals to recommendations to promote ESD together with ASP.NET schools, and in 2008, inter-university network we call UNIVNET that support ASP.NET has established. Now there are more than 1,200 ASP.NET schools in Japan and implemented their education introducing ESD concept. Another movement in Japan related to is national curriculum standards. After a series of discussions, the core idea of ESD, which is expressed as fostering builders of sustainable society, was incorporated into the new national curriculum standards for primary and lower secondary and upper secondary education. And also in the third basic plan for the promotion of education in 2018. In cooperation to these policies, every school education at all levels has now been conducted based on the philosophy of ESD nationwide. The figure on the right side shows us the points of ESD practice included in their new national curriculum standard. We are aiming for learner-concerned active learning through the curricula that are open to society. There are three pillars: cultivation of the motivation to learn and humanity, acquisition of the knowledge and skills, and developing ability to think critically. Next slide, please. To support ASP.NET in Japan, we have established the secretariat and operate the official website to provide activities of ASP.NET schools to share good practices and useful materials, information on events, including National ASP.NET Conference. And also, we are conducting annual activity survey to ASP.NET schools to understand the current situation and status, challenges, and outcomes of schools, so that we could reflect the trends and challenges to its figures and future policies. And I think and I hope that those findings from the survey also give some motivations to teachers and school managers to further promote their activities as well as confidence to their activities. I would like to share some results comes from survey took place in fiscal year 2020. Next slide, please. This slide shows the situation of awareness at the schools. Figure 1 shows the awareness of ESD for 2030. Figure 2 shows the awareness of students' status on ESD in the new national educational guidelines. Figure 3 shows awareness of SDGs Goal 4, Target 4.7. And Figure 4 shows the awareness of the relationship between ESD and SDGs 17 goals. As we know, at the time of 2015, SDGs was introduced, but ESD has started before that, from 2005. So at the time SDGs was decided and introduced at the school education, there are some confusions at schools about the relation between ESD and SDGs, since some teachers thought ESD and SDGs are different, and they have lost their way to promote ESD activities. Now, new international initiatives, ESD for 2030, has launched, and we are also disseminating the information that ESD is getting more attention as the education for realizing the goals of SDGs. And it aims to foster people who can perceive global issues as their own issues and take actions actively to solve those problems. With the result of Figure 4 shows that the understanding of the relationship between ESD and SDGs at ASP.NET schools are increasing, and now it becomes 92%. So next slide, please. This slide shows the changes in teachers on curriculum development and teaching method through educational activities of ASP.NET schools. You can see the changes in teachers in the mindset of introducing sustainability values, curriculum management with cross-cutting efforts, put efforts to be aware of problems and find tasks, and become creative with teaching materials, data, and questions for the class. And the percentage of teachers have come to develop a curriculum that enables students to be aware of problems and find tasks, increasing 44% to 53%. And teachers have become creative with teaching materials, data, and questions for the class, increased from 45% to 48% from last year. On the other hand, changes related to interactions with other schools keeps low rate, and some are decreased. In fiscal year of 2020, is a COVID-19 pandemic hit the school education, and teachers put great efforts to provide education to their school and students. And it was a very difficult time to implement exchange programs. So those situations are reflecting, I think, to this figure numbers. Since Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology mix is now strongly promoting to introduce ICT at schools, Also, due to the limit of traveling because of COVID-19, online meeting and exchange programs are rapidly increasing. And I hope those movements also promote the interaction between ASP.NET schools nationally and internationally. And we started the consultation meeting to strengthen the networking activities. Next slide, please. This slide shows the changes in teachers' school management through educational activity in their school. This question focuses on the school management, while the previous slide questions focusing on the curriculum and teaching method. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, increase rate is small or some decrease. We can see the efforts and changes towards the whole school approach within their schools, such as there is increased momentum among schools to work for ESD, or teachers have come to create a system that enables to the ongoing activities of UNESCO ASP.NET schools. However, there are still some low rates for the outreaching to their parents. Next slide, please. This slide shows the changes can be seen with students through ESD activities. There are three key components for on ESD, and most effective changes can be seen at the motivation to learn and humanity. And the most changed perspectives for building sustainable society is interdependence. Next slide, please. This is the pictures comes from the Tadami Junior High School, which I introduced the first questions. The top left pictures shows that students are picking up the garbage at the beach, and then the right top is learning. Students are participating online meeting with the Ocean Summit, and the bottom pictures shows the students are teaching to making the paper bag to their communities. So those are the experience now we are taking. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Horio. Always nice to see the real life and project-based learning activities happening. And of course, the Associated Schools Network is such a wonderful means to do that. Let us then move on and turn to the example of Jordan, which is a country which has been very actively integrating the concept of peace, sustainable development, and well-being in the country's education system. So my question to Ms. Johar is, what kind of reforms have been implemented and what has been their impact? And how can we see the learners' behavioral changes through these reforms coming forward? Over to you, Ms. Johar. Could you unmute your mic, please? We don't hear you.
Okay, if you can put my slides, please. Okay, next slide, please. Here in Jordan, next slides. In Jordan, we have a vision 2025. Next slide, please. Next, another one, another next. Okay. In Jordan, we have a Jordan vision, which focus about Jordan Vision 2025 has been prepared to chart a path for the future, define the general integrated framework that will govern economic and social policy based on providing opportunities for all. For this, it's necessary to raise the level of education and health and the level of infrastructures. Next slide, please. Then we have the 7th discussion paper of His Majesty King Abdullah Thani Ibn al-Hussein, which focus about building our human capabilities and developing the educational process is the sense of the nation's progress, which about focus about, next slide please, next slide, which focus about investigating the future of our children's development and keeping with modernization for the curricula, a strong Jordan that provides its children with the best education that qualifies them to face the challenge of life. Next slide, please. Okay, then we put the National Strategy for Human Resource Development 2017. Its vision is to develop talents and achieve well-being. For this, ensure that all children have high-quality early education and experiences, ensuring that all students in the elementary and secondary stages have access and qualified and efficient high-quality education. Next slide, please. No, the previous, please. The previous. Okay. And by 2025, ensure that there is a fair opportunity to enroll and obtain higher education at affordable cost and high quality. Achieving a significant increase in the number of young people and adults who possess technical skills. This is about the National Strategy for Human Resource. So about this, we bought National Strategy for Human Resource Development. The desired results. Next, please. Next slide. Yes, the desired result for this strategy is show attention to early education and childhood development, develop elementary and secondary education, raise the level of higher education, enhance vocational and technical education, and focus on training. Next slide, please. No, this slide. Then we put the general framework of curricula. Its vision was educational curricula that simulate learning, discovery, and creativity, enhance national and human identities. Its message, the general framework message, is developing curricula and enable learnings to capable and discovery and creativity, believing in diversity and the value of justice, dignity, and human rights. Next slide, please. For this, we make a capacity building. There is many awards to build capacity in Jordan. Most important of them is King Abdullah Awards for this mentioned government. Another one is Exemplary Employee Awards in Service Peri, Queen Rania Awards for Excellent Teachers. Next slide, please. Of all of this, we have raised, we have shown our participation in the TIMSS and PISA test. Next slide, please. This slide shows our participation of TIMSS by mathematics subjects. We show a big jump since 2015. In 2019, we have a big job. Another slide. Also at science subjects, we have a big job in 2019 for the previous examination in 2015. Also, next slide, please. Also, at the PISA, about the PISA, which focusing about science, reading, and math, we have a big jump in science, reading, and math. In 2018, different of the previous period, which is 2015. Next slide, please. We have another initiative which called is reading and arithmetic, which is call it in Jordan round. About round, it's for three stages. Earlier stage, first, second, third stage. If you which this round focus about sub skills in reading and arithmetic. If you see this table, you notice that we have positive scores in all skills and all sub skills. This is for math. I can't get the reading one. So thank you. I have finished my slides, and thank you.
So much. Thank you so much, Ms. Johar. So interesting to see how these reforms in the education system have also translated and have been, yes, translated into the better results in PISA. Let us then move over to Germany. And I would like Mr. Greiner to speak to us about the German experience, where Germany has been supporting a national ESD monitoring with the start of the Global Action Program on Education for Sustainable Development. And it is a very interesting approach in relation to the country's ESD multi-stakeholder process and the ESD action program, and developed from a descriptive towards a supportive monitoring approach, which means to actively support the actors in their ESD implementation efforts. So there is a study that has been based on the reflective monitoring in action approach. And what we would like to hear from you, Mr. Greiner, is how it started, who were involved, and why was this study conducted? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me start with the first question. How did it start and who is involved? I will first mention how the German process of ESD implementation is structured. At the federal level, not only our ministry, but the whole federal government stands behind education for sustainable development. The sustainability strategy of the federal government emphasizes that ESD should be anchored in all areas of education. The objectives are twofold. On one hand, the promotion of education in sustainability discourses. On the other, the promotion of sustainability in education. Consequently, the German federal government attaches considerable political importance to the national implementation of UNESCO's programs on ESD, the Global Action Program, and now to ESD for 2030 program. Already during the UN decade on ESD, 2004 to 2014, thousands of people in Germany have set up diverse, successful ESD projects. However, they were quite detached from the rest of the education community, which is highly complex in Germany with, you know, the 16 federal states being in charge of education. At the end of the decade, therefore, we all realized that ESD must be anchored more structurally in the education system. Therefore, we needed to develop ESD further from project to structure. Next slide, please. Next, yes. The Federal Ministry of Education and Research implemented, therefore, in 2015, at the beginning of UNESCO's Global Action Program on ESD, a multi-stakeholder process, as you can see on this slide. Next slide. Don't be afraid, it's not so cruel as it looks. The overarching goal of this process is the structural implementation and mainstreaming of ESD within all areas of education: early childhood, school education, vocational education and training, higher education, non-formal and informal learning, and learning in local authorities. In Germany, more than 300 actors from civil society, science, business, the federal states, and local authorities work together intensively in 6 expert forums, partner networks, and a youth forum coordinated by the main steering body on ESD in Germany, the National Platform ESD. The National Platform, you can see it in the heart of the process, is chaired by the State Secretary of our Education Ministry and consists of 45 members at decision maker level. They all share the goal of implementing ESD along the chain of lifelong learning, and they all are adopted the National Action Plan for ESD with its 130 goals in 2017. Altogether, it is comprehensive and holistic, this approach, covering all educational institutions relevant for lifelong learning. It is accompanied by 2 consultants, an international and a scientific one. From the beginning, our ministry, BMBF, has been funding an independent national ESD monitoring. It delivers the evidence base for the scientific advisor of the national platform and all further ESD bodies you see on this slide. The advisor is attached to the Freie Universität Berlin. The monitoring has several aims. It should measure the structural implementation of ESD, capture trends, and recommend possible measures for implementing ESD. Thereby, it uses and supports the National Action Plan. Next slide, please. How is the monitoring project designed? The project follows a mixed method design, as you can see on this slide. The central goal is to capture the extent, quality, and development of ESD on different levels: documents, educational practices, public awareness, and in different educational areas. The project generates empirical results from different sub-studies with varying methods: document analysis of curricula and other central documents, you see it in yellow, expert interviews and focus groups decisions here in blue, as well as quantitative online studies with formal and non-formal education in red. All these studies are developed in dialogue with the actors of the multi-stakeholder process, following a transdisciplinary approach. So to sum up, involved are the scientific advisor, his team, and over 300 educational actors of the ESD process. Additionally, the collected experiences are used, here in green, described as scientific advice and knowledge mobilization. Over the years, the project has been adjusted towards a monitoring approach that is more reflexive and supportive. You said it. The new monitoring approach explicitly aims the strengthening strengthening the capacity of the actors with the ESD process. Therefore, the reflexive monitoring in action is at the core of a new monitoring orientation. Next slide, please. What is RMA? Reflexive monitoring in action. For implementing the RMA, our monitoring team organizes virtual work groups with our different expert forums in order to encourage their reflections and dialogues to support the ESD implementation. Thereby, they focus on questions like the readjustment of their working goals, the identification of missing key actors, or the identification of systematic drivers or barriers for an effective ESD implementation. Different interactive methods have been used in the workshops, such as actor analysis or backcastings. The workshops are very positively received by the members of the ESD bodies and are currently leading to initial results, such as the establishment of new thematic working groups. The process to bring ESD from project to structure is, to be frank, full of conflicts of interest and can therefore be frustrating at times. However, with the RMA approach, the monitoring team strives for enhancing the ownership of all actors involved and aims to foster their identification with a national action plan on ESD. In such a multi-professional governance environment, actors from civil society and educational practice are equally important as actors from the administration. This is why the research focuses on interactive practices between all these actors in order to better understand how they cooperate within the governance of ESD and how to shape the transformation towards more ESD. The monitoring in Germany has been following this new path of a transformative, reflexive, and supportive nature for 2 years now. The results enable us to learn more about the diffusion processes of ESD in the different educational areas in Germany. This is really useful for us as well as for the members of the different bodies, because the path towards a transformative transformation of the educational system is only successful if it is a joint path. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Greiner. So interesting to learn about your experience. It is as you say, a comprehensive and holistic approach. And what was also interesting to hear is about, of course, the complexity and the challenges that come with such an approach. We will have time to actually go back and look deeper into monitoring. But before we do so, I would actually want to turn now to the audience and invite the audience to put forward their ideas, 2 words, on what they see as being important for the education system to change in order for the transformative education to happen. We also have a couple of questions that have come into for the speakers, and we will take that after this question. But let me perhaps hand over to June so that she can explain to you how actually you will be able to feed in your ideas and thoughts, or actually 2 words in response to this question. June, over to you.
Thank you very much, Krista. Can you hear me? Yes, great. So this exercise is more for the audience, but of course the guest speakers, if you're interested in, please join. Please visit slido.com which is an application available online. If you have a device, please type slido.com. And the survey code is 472599. Either you can also use the QR code, which is on the left side on the top. Thank you. Let's take a couple of minutes. Thank you. We have started to have some responses. Okay, maybe we can wait up to 100. Yeah.
One more minute.
Okay.
And then we can perhaps keep the slide on the screen. I think it's best that we just have a look at the diversity of ideas actually coming forward, which also shows the complexity of the term, and also we will. I see that the two questions that have been put forward to the speakers also touch upon the changes that would be required in the education sector. So, June, would you read out the first question? And then we can invite the speakers to actually comment on the question, and also perhaps what you will see, the words that you will see emerging on the screen.
Krista, which question is about?
The questions that were put forward by the audience.
Oh, yes, that is something we can discuss together. But would you like me to present the questions? Sorry.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Read
them out so that the speakers then can comment on the questions.
Yes, sure. So the first question, before changing students' mindset, indeed, we have this mindset in the middle just right now on the slide. Should we change teachers first? What are the most effective ways to do that? Do we need teacher training or should start with pre-service teacher? That was the first question. And would you like me to read out also the other interesting question coming up?
Yes, please go ahead.
How can we change students' mindset if the design of a university, so this one is really looking at the higher education, if the design of university is based on silo structure, promotion of educators is based mainly on research, not on their contribution to transformative education. Over to you.
Thank you so much, June. So the questions are about when we speak about the change that is needed in the mindset of students, then where should we start? Do we start with teachers? And then if so, how should this be done in a most effective manner? Either already by in-service or pre-service teacher training. And then the other is about the design of university being based on a silo approach. Then how can we promote the educators' education in a transformative manner? So who would want to come first? Can I perhaps start with Mr. Greiner, who was the last speaker, and then we move our way backwards. Over to you, Mr. Greiner.
Thank you. If we're talking about school education, I think teachers' competencies are the first thing. As you know, in Germany, teachers' education is based in the 16 states. So we have not only one type of educating teachers in Germany, so nearly 16. And that's really challenging. I would agree with you. Teachers' competencies are very, very
It's a challenge, I think, mostly for the fact, because of the fact that Germany is a federal government, right? So you have delegated the authority for the curriculum and possibly teacher training also to the regional level, right? Is this where the main challenge comes from?
It's not only delegated, it's by law, by our constitution.
But you do agree that we should start with teachers, and is it with teachers
That's our
already
opinion, yes.
At the pre-service level before they actually, I mean, at the university level?
At the university level, it's a little bit more complex. You see, both university teachers and the students are essential for this progress of implementing ESD in a holistic approach on universities, yes.
And do you also have a comment on the fact that already, so how can we change the mindset into being more transformative and cognizant of the interconnectedness that exists in this world, if already the university, the way we provide education at the university level is a very siloed approach? How can we then make this change in the mindset happen?
You're right, that's a very siloed approach, and universities. In our National Action Plan, we have the aim to break a little bit these silos and come to an approach not only on universities, but on every other part of the educational system to be more holistic, yeah, and diversing.
It's also significant, as you know, because of the fact that now we say that the whole 2030 agenda is sort of recognizes the interconnectedness of the challenges that we face in today's world. So it's true that we need to somehow transmit this also in the way the education system is constructed, and we actually educate our youth. Ms. Johar, what are your reflections on these questions? over to you.
Okay, it's very difficult thing to change the minds of the teacher. We must to emphasize critical thinking and have the student change mind. We must focus about change mind the teachers. Here in Jordan, we have a Queen Rania Academy that train teacher well in many programs. And we have in the Ministry of Education, we have multi-programs to train the teacher. It's not easy to change the mind of them, but Queen Rania Academy Award for excellent teacher motivates teachers and spreading a culture of excellence by underscoring success stories and to make it for the general teacher. Okay, I finished.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I see that in Jordan, you really try to motivate and encourage change through different awards, right?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Horio, over to you.
Yes, so I think there is always something that every stage, not only the university, but also the teacher, is also there is something they can do at their positions or their roles. For example, the teachers can find the the connectivity with the global issues and their local issues or their local lives. So the teachers can find those connectivities and teaching to their students, and then the students can realize the the connections between the global challenges and their actions, their lives, and then they have changed their mindset and then they change their actions. And at the university levels in Japan, we are also having that Teacher Education Institute providing a teacher training with and also the organizing the workshop with to sharing the good practices, so the teachers can get the image to the next actions or the how to implement the or develop their curriculum. So for my question answer is there is always something to do with their positions.
But we need to always put teachers first.
Yes, but the teachers always have important roles in the education systems.
And how about the siloed approach at the university level? Do you how can you sort of respond to that question?
In my presentation at the first slide, we established the university network to support ASP.NET schools. So those universities are providing workshops to the local ASP.NET schools, as well as teacher training programs. So the schools in the ASP.NET school, teachers in ASP.NET schools have an opportunity to develop their curriculums or how to promote to change the mindset of students. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Horio. I believe it's time for us to move then to the third question that I would like to put to our panelists. I believe that our speaker from Botswana unfortunately was not able to join us, so let us move on. And the last question, as I said, is about monitoring. And my question to you, dear speakers, is the following. What are the most important factors that you think are necessary to be retained to monitor the progress in your country? Or what aspects are you see as being crucial for the success of the ongoing process? Let me start again with Mr. Greiner. Over to you.
Thank you very much. To make it very short, the recipe for success for us is an indicator-based monitoring, which uses not only quantitative indicators, but also takes the qualitative dimension into consideration, and even more crucial, a transdisciplinary approach to support the joint path for ESD. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me then move on to Ms. Johar.
Okay, it's how to keep on development and modernization, focusing on teacher training, put good and fixed quality control standards. That's it.
Thank you very much. Very succinct answers. Ms. Horio, over to you.
I think I also repeat my previous comment that the importance we through the those annual surveys we can see the progress of the at school level and also the challenges the schools are facing, and then the point of the that point we need that our national commission need to strengthen. So those surveys need to, one of the good tools to monitoring. And then for the crucial issues to promote ESD is as I said, there is always something people can act to build sustainable society. The point is how people recognize the connection between global issues or risk to sustainable society and their lives. And the education to promote those recognition to realize the connection and bring change mindset and find the way to solution and action can be taken is important. And accordingly, the people can act to make the sustainable society. That is a very crucial point for the ESD. And to do that, we continue our effort to implement ESD at school level and promote whole school approach, which is important to implement cross-cutting approach as well as sustainable activities. Also, not only at schools, because the sustainable global challenge is very complicated and it's impossible to solve only at school levels. So cooperation between many stakeholders, including local communities, universities, private sectors, are also important, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This also resonates with what Mr. Greiner said earlier about this multi-stakeholder approach. Is in Japan, I mean, is the Japanese approach to promoting transformative education also similar to what Mr. Greiner was describing as happening in Germany? And do you also have a whole system of advisors and coordination in place, Ms. Horio?
Yes, not exactly same, but also we also developed and established the national action plan for ESD with related ministries, including the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Ministry of Law and Justice, and Ministry. So several ministries are incorporated, and then we have close cooperation between the private sectors and also the UNESCO clubs in the communities, and also the Board of Education in our local communities. So we are trying to establish the multi-stakeholder approaches as well.
Can I also ask a little bit about the sort of the ways how you actually promote the concept of sustainable development at the country level? From Central Asia, UNESCO Almaty office has been very active in supporting education for sustainable development, and what we have done is actually based on UNESCO's global tools and publications. We have developed a series of trainings that we roll out, but we also have found, especially during the COVID outbreak and when we saw the school closures and the move of the education and learning actually to online and distance learning, we felt that it was very important also for us to support the countries in the development of interactive learning modules. And we have a project supported by the Estonian government in Kyrgyzstan, that allowed us to develop interactive learning modules on different aspects related to education for sustainable development, also global citizenship education. And we thought that this was a very good way also to provide teachers with very concrete tools that they were able to use at the time of lockdowns. Do the speakers, the panelists, also have similar experience from your countries that you also support teachers and the schools by providing them with concrete tools and content? Ms. Juhar, may I come to you first? Could you please unmute your mic so we hear you?
Oh, are you hearing me now? Are you hearing me? Okay. It's in COVID-19, we have many challenges in the University of Education. How to learn the children in their houses. Especially if we in Jordan, we have some towns. There is no technique, no good techniques, and they have no internet. They have no computers labbing. So the Ministry of Education try to teach everyone in his house. We make we make videos for the all of the subjects for all of the stages, from the first stage up to 12th stage. The Ministry of Education open channels, specific channels for the students to follow their subjects and all of the subjects in it. Also, we have a specific and specific training for teacher how to teach without saying their children's. After this, in this year, we will back to our schools. We make a specific subjects or specific lessons for to enrich the students by the skills and the outcomes that they can't catch them in the previous year.
Thank you, Ms. Johar. May I turn now to Ms. Horio and Japan's experience on during the COVID pandemic as regards the promotion of ESD. Over to
Okay, thank you. With the COVID-19, as I think it's the same situation that in Japan also the people are limit the traveling, but so at the beginning there is all the activities are stopped, but the universities are support the SPNet schools to providing online workshop or online meetings and online training course. So through those training course online tools, the schools teachers can participate and or receiving those training courses. And for the concrete programs, for example, this year the UN Ocean Decade of Ocean Science has launched this year. And then the Tokyo University Center for Ocean Literacy and Educations are providing the workshop to those schools by online. So those schools are located in the ocean area, coastal area. They can participate to the online workshop and receiving the training course and sharing their experience for the ocean education, and then they bring to their school curriculums. And as for the World Cultural Heritage, Nara University of Education located in Nara, which is also the World Heritage Site. They are implementing World Heritage curriculum, education, and so they are also providing the developing a textbook and also the training course. So the areas who has a World Heritage or cultural heritage, they can participate in those programs as well. So those programs and Shinshu universities, which is located in biosphere reserves in Japan, they are also providing a workshop to the schools to how using those informations of biosphere reserves. And then, so we are trying to encourage to connect with those UNESCO programs to bringing to the school education. Can I answer your questions?
Yes, thank you so much. So in a way, the pandemic has also taught us how to work more online and actually have sometimes also a better outreach. Mr. Greiner, over to you.
Thank you. I must repeat what I said earlier. In Germany, the school education is under the authority of the 16 German states. And COVID-19 was very, very challenging, especially for these 16 states, more than for us at the federal level. We accompany and support the states with material, for example, on our ESD portal in internet, which is very large and supportive. And to be frank, COVID-19 was the greatest challenge was in the non-formal sector. Non-formal education suffered a lot finding new programs under COVID-19. And we launched now a working group under the federal level about ESD and digitalization on our federal level. And for us, the competencies of ESD are the competences needed in times of challenge, of resilience. And so ESD is a way to get over these challenges, even under COVID-19.
Absolutely, Mr. Greiner. Yes, this has also been UNESCO's main message, that we need to learn from this this shock by building back better, by finding ways to build stronger education systems, more resilient education systems, and also more dynamic education systems, so that we can move from online to offline modes of learning and education in a more seamless manner. Let us then conclude our discussion today here. I think that the three panelists have given us a wealth of knowledge and experience from very different, diverse countries like Germany, Japan, and Jordan. It is a pity that our speaker from Botswana could not join us because of the technical challenges. But again, this is one of the ways how we have to be more dynamic and adaptive to the system and learn to function differently. So thank you so much for your participation. Thank you also for the audience for your engagement. We will actually have a report of the whole forum, of course, but also of individual sessions prepared. So your ideas and comments will also be reflected in that. And with that, let me thank all the speakers, all the participants, and wish you good health and strength and courage in promoting education for sustainable development and transformative education. Thank you. Over.
Thank you.